Every sport has its legends, and in the past few years of the high-speed, razor-tight world of Mini Z racing, one name keeps showing up at the top of the leaderboard. José Pequito. Two-time champion, laser-focused, unshakable under pressure. And when he's on the track, it's not just racing, it's precision art at 1/28 scale. This is the guy who can read a line like a chess master sees 5 moves ahead. And when the margin between winning and losing is measured in just tenths of a second, that edge matters. He's earned wins on some of the toughest tracks in the world, where split-second decisions separate champions from the rest of the pack. And now, he's bringing all that knowledge to the design table. With his new company, Xbility, Jose isn't just building another car, he's helping develop a machine that reflects everything he's learned from years at the front of the grid.
Welcome back to the Shop Mini RC, everybody. I'm Ken, and today we're looking at something awesome. Awesome for the Mini Z space, awesome for small scale, just plain awesome in general. We have got the Xbility RC, I believe they're called the Xbility 1. This new chassis, basically it's a roller, is very different from what's already been out there. Most importantly, it's different because it's been designed by a world champion racer who has won 2 of the most recent world championships. And so that's pretty awesome to see that he's now taking his knowledge, Jose, who we mentioned in the intro, is now taking his knowledge and building something with it. So it's going to be awesome. We're going to dive deep into this guy. We're going to do a build video. Make sure you use the chapters down below. If it's getting too long for you, you need to bounce around, don't hesitate to use those. Definitely going to be helpful. And this car is going to be awesome. We have a lot of different Mini Zs we've ran, and I'm excited to check this thing out. So come along with the ride. Like I said, we're going to build it. We'll see how detailed we get. And then we're definitely going to run it, and we're going to give you our feedback on how we feel like this thing's going to do in the grand scheme of things. There is another World Championship coming up this year. It's actually held here locally in Colorado. It's going to be in Lakewood, Colorado. The past few years of championships have been in different places around the world, and this year we get it here in the U.S., and I'm even luckier to have it here in my hometown. And we're going to have tons of coverage of that as well, so definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're interested in Mini Z stuff, interested in the World Championship, interested in any of the stuff that we do. Hit that subscribe. We really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and dive into this thing. I'm excited. So we got to stop talking. Let's get in there. Let's go. So let's look at this thing. The box itself already is pretty awesome looking. It's pretty quality. It's magnetic. That's awesome. Look at that. Then we've got some different compartments here. Even a torque servo in there. So that's cool. So this is going to be the full build kit. And it's basically going to be a full slider with the exception of the rear wheels, which we'll get into that. It does come with some rear wheels because they have a specific keying that goes into the diff. So all you'll need is front wheels, all your electronics minus the servo, and a body. Xbility does have a body, so you can snag one of those if you want when you order it, but you can order this guy on their website, and I believe the price is at $3.99 right now. So you can pick up the full kit, and like I said, then you just add your ESC motor and receiver and transmitter and battery, and you should be good to go. Well, and the body. Let's go ahead and open this guy up. See what we've got in here. An awesome little business card. You can pause and read that if you'd like. Bunch of numbered bags here. Oh, there's the chassis. Nice, nice. So a bunch of numbered bags. It is a full kit. So be ready to build. Oh, look at this. A full-blown manual. Colored manual. That is nice looking. That is slick. So we'll be going through, and like I said, we'll be building this. You can hang out with us while we build it. I will point out anything that we kind of have issues with, if we have any kind of issues that we run into. Should be pretty clean though. Look at this, even tire tips. Setup tips for tires, or springs, excuse me. Different springs. Man. Nice setup there with the manual. I dig that. I believe they also have an online manual. So if you want to use that, or if there's any updates, you can always check that manual as well. What is this? Another bag here. Some extra stuff. This looks like the wheels, or a set of wheels. Awesome, awesome. All right. Very cool. Well, I'm excited to get into this. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of clean this up, and we'll start on, I guess, page 1 here. Figured I would just show everything laid out here, bag 1 through 16 plus our other. Let me go ahead and just point out some stuff about this car before we go through and do the full build, because I'm sure a lot of people are just kind of interested in what this car is about. So again, it's a 1/28 scale on-road chassis. So you will have to check with your local club's class rules to see what class this kind of car fits in. But here locally, we can run it in pretty much every class except box stock. We have a 2500 LiPo that can run pretty much any kind of chassis, all the way up to mod pan, 3500, all kinds of different stuff. So this is a very versatile kit, at least for our club rules. Your club rules may be a little different. So definitely ask if you can run this type of car in your club rules, but it's going to be an awesome build here. I'm super excited for it. One of the cool things is the way the front end works on this guy. It's got a little bit different steering knuckle and front end, the A-arms and whatnot. So we'll show that. They're like the pillow joints that you find on 8 scale on road. It has multiple roll center and camber gain options, which is super cool. So it's fully tunable on the front end geometry to totally fit however it is you want to build the car or how you drive. It's got a new diff. That's going to be the first thing we build here. The new diff style and basically wheel retainer here. It's a 3-point situation where the wheel will kind of tuck in and it holds with basically a triangle kind of situation, and versus just 2 pins, which can kind of cause not centered wheels on the rear diffs. So that's a cool and innovative design, but it does mean you have to have a specific wheel. It does come with the 11 millimeter wheels here. They're 11 by 20 millimeters, so 11 wide, 20 diameter, and they are a +3 offset. And then you're going to need another set of wheels for whatever the front end is. So if you're trying to run this in mod and you want to run it with 14s, make sure you put in your order to get the extra wheels for the 14s if you want to run that when you purchase your kit. There's also a lot of battery position adjustments, so you can fit 24 millimeter hard packs or soft packs. There's also 3 rear bench level points, so you can adjust the rear without changing your entire track width. And then it does come with a steel chassis here. So it's not brass, not aluminum, not carbon fiber, it's steel. And last, it does come with a torque servo. So you don't have to worry about a servo. It comes with it, which is pretty awesome. I've been using the torque servos quite a bit. We use them mostly in our crawlers, our small scale crawlers, but they do make stuff for the Mini Z. So awesome to see that included. Fantastic brand. And we absolutely love it. And again, the crawlers, man, they take some beatings when you start to build those trucks and they've got tons of weight on them and the big old tires and you're getting stuck in rocks and the servo's got to pull it out of rocks. Definitely a tough servo, and I haven't had any issues with it. So I am happy to get a torque with this for sure. And that's pretty much it though. Again, awesome guide, torque servo. It's going to be a great kit. I am excited to build it. I love that it's all separated in bags, each little step by step. Should be pretty simple, pretty easy build, and hopefully, like I said, with this color manual and all these little tips in there, it's going to be a fun build, not just an easy build. Look at this. I love this. Absolutely love this. Tells you different setups here. Pod squat, 1, 2, 3, and then it tells you. So if you're newer, you can learn from your build manual. Less on power steering, increase rear traction. Standard position. More on power steering, decrease rear traction. More steering, less steering, if you loosen or tighten your diff. I mean, that's just awesome to have those little notes, make it a little bit more new, user-friendly. Again, this car is going to be able to take somebody brand new and, hold their hand through the build and get you an awesome car to run at your local track for the higher end racing. And then, it'll grow with you. As you get better at racing, the car can handle it. It's a world champion level car. So top of the line when it comes to best of the best, this car is going to be that as well. So it's awesome that they're making it user friendly for somebody who maybe this is their first car. But then it's also built like a car that you would get from a world champion racer. So it hits both, which is super awesome. I feel like it's always good to bring in new people. It's always good to make things really approachable for new people. You don't want a barrier to entry in the hobby. And I think doing what they did with that manual, hands down, is going to be awesome that you can learn that stuff. So, and it gives you a quick reference as a new person, as you're building, so you understand what you're building, not just why it's set a certain way, but actually the results that will come from using those tuning adjustments and whatnot. Anyway, let's get into this guy. Here's the QR to all their different links. If you want to get the digital manual and kind of follow through that way, you're more than welcome. So we're going to go ahead and start with our diff here. Here's all the diff parts laid out. You can see everything in the diagram here. Correlated here. The only thing that's different is our pin. You can't see the pin here. It's actually underneath, but you do have this little axle shaft pin. One of the first things we're going to do is take our plates here and we're going to sand them down. Now you can use anywhere between 1,000 grit and 1,500. We have some 1,500, so that's what we're going to use. But basically we just go ahead and put these on a super flat surface and we're going to just kind of rub it in a circular motion, just trying to get any imperfections out of here and get it nice and flat. And you'll see as you sand it, there may be slightly raised spots or anything of that nature, just even like around the edge here. Just from when they stamp these out of the metal, it kind of curves or pushes the edges. So you can see we're getting a little bit more sanding going on there. Either way, you just want to make it flat and nice and smooth. And that's just kind of a good practice. Not everybody does it, but some of the best drivers do. And I think it's a good idea. Again, you want to do it on a flat portion. You don't want to do it, where there's a ridge, but just kind of get your disc nice and flat in a circular motion. Do the sides that are going to be facing inward onto your diff gear. You want to do it evenly and flat. So don't like push on one side like this. That's not ideal. You want to keep it as flat as possible. All right. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we keep our sanded sides facing up. Again, the idea is just to try to get them flat. Get any kind of imperfections out of there. And yeah, you don't have to do it, but I would recommend it if you've got the sandpaper nearby and handy. Next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and put together our diff gear here. Now these are ceramic balls that come with this guy. Whoa, you gotta be careful, don't lose them. And you are gonna need some ball diff grease as well as some thrust bearing grease. And we've got some here, we got some black grease there. Oh man, almost lost one of our balls here. So our black grease, and we got some 1-Up pink diff grease. And these balls are gonna actually pop right into this. It's a captured diff gear. So the balls will be captured inside the diff gear. Now I like to grease up each ball. I take my driver here, pick up the balls with the grease, go ahead and stick it in, and it should pop right in. Maybe. Maybe it needs to go in on the side. There we go. Yeah, use your driver to push them in. So you can pick them up with the grease on the ball end and then set them in and pop them in. A little click. Okay, we'll finish this up. And there we go. And we go ahead and just add a little bit of grease on here. And just kind of run it through. Make sure we're nice and greased up. You don't need a ton. You don't really want a ton. It'll attract dirt and whatnot. But I really do like that these balls are captured in there. That's super nice. That way, if you ever have an issue, an axle breaks or anything like that, your balls don't go flying everywhere. We've had a few times where we have an axle break, we get hit real hard in the back of the car, axle shaft breaks, axle comes out, and the whole diff just explodes depending on where the axle you broke, and you can end up losing all your balls. And being that these are ceramic, you definitely don't want to be losing them. So I like that they're captured. That's super, super nice. All right, next up, we're going to go ahead and throw our pin in. Then we'll go ahead and throw in this guy. Make sure your plate has the protruding side on this side and the indented side on this side. Then you're going to put your O-ring on, and it kind of sits right in there. Super nice. And then we will go ahead and put our retaining nut on and just kind of snug it up on there. It doesn't need to be tight, because you want to make sure that we can drop this down a little bit to fit all the rest of the parts on. Just make sure your pin doesn't pop out. So make it tight enough to where your pin's not going to just fall out. Okay. Super simple. Next, we can go ahead and drop on the disc, our plate. Remember our sanded side inward. Okay. It should seat right on there just fine. Then we'll take our larger bearing. There's two bearings that come with. Actually, this is, yeah, the larger bearing. This guy here, actually. And it should drop right in there. We're going to do the slotted side out so you can see the slotted side. There's two sides to this bearing. One should be shielded, and one you can kind of see the balls in there. I'm going to put that towards the inside. So this guy will drop right on. Then we can take our diff. That'll sit right on top of the bearing there. Okay. And we can tighten this guy up just a little bit more. And we can take our next plate. Remember, sanded side towards the bearings. The next bearing goes into the hub here. Make sure that guy is sitting in there nice and flush. And then we can drop that on here. Goes this way. And make sure our plate seats into that mount. There we go. You should have no gap in there. Looking good, looking good. Next, we're going to be doing our thrust bearing. There are two different plates on the thrust bearing. There's a larger inner diameter, and a smaller inner diameter. The larger inner diameter goes first, and we're going to actually stick it on here with the groove facing up. Then our thrust bearing, and then the other smaller plate. Now we do need to get some grease on here, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of black thrust bearing grease on there. Now I do want to point out on this little thrust bearing, there are two sides. There's a more open side and a more closed off side. See that? So that's the outside, and the more exposed bearings are the inside. You want those facing inward, like so. Just a little bit. That's probably too much. Just a little though. And then our next plate, we'll just kind of run that grease in there a little bit. And then last, we'll go ahead and put our wheel nut on just to retain this for now. So this is a little different than a lot of diffs out there. And then of course we can tune it here. Once we get the diff all in the car, we can adjust and tighten and loosen the diff with this here. So let's go ahead and do our next plate here. We've got our little grub screw and our plate for the other side, and let's use a 1-3. So we can go ahead and run our 1-3 grub screw. Is it 1-3? Maybe not. It's not 1-3. It is 0.9 millimeter. No. What is this? Why is it not fitting? Maybe it's an 050. Yeah, 050. So they mention it's a 1-3. It's not technically a 1-3, especially if you have high quality tools. MIP tools are super accurate and precise. So a 1-3 will not fit into an 050 because it's just slightly larger. So you will need an 050 or a sloppy 1-3. I'm going to go ahead and use the tiniest bit of Loctite here, just a tiny bit, blue Loctite, so that we don't have our grub screw back out on us. Again, not much, just a little tiny bit. And then we can drop that into the plate here. Okay. And this guy goes this way. And you can see it slotted on the drive shaft. And there you go. So there's our diff assembly for now. And once we get our rear pod ready, we'll drop this guy in there, revisit it. Now we're onto what they're calling the rear plate, but it is the chassis plate. Again, this thing is steel. Look at that guy. That's freaking awesome. This is our front. This is our rear. So we go kind of like this. So we have our link mounts, link towers that go here. You can see a list of everything here, including our screws, M24s and an M26, 24, 26. They're labeled, so super easy. Looks like there's also adjustment points here, right here inside the chassis, which is pretty awesome. You can kind of see they're grooved, so there's 3 different positions, which is cool. We'll go ahead and throw these link towers in. There is a curved side and a non-curved side. The curved side will go towards the front. Also, you want to make, front outside like this. You also want to make sure that we're not poking through the chassis. That means we're on the wrong side. So we'll take this guy, flip it over, and put it over here. Those pins are slightly shorter on that side, and you can see it's more flush now. But you want it set up like that with the curve to the outside. So same here, and these pins should be flush. And we'll use some M24 screws, countersunk screws, and we'll use a little bit of Loctite. Everything metal going into metal, you want to use Loctite. Don't use Loctite on anything going into plastic. That could damage the plastic. Loctite will break plastic down. So we'll do this, and we'll go ahead and Loctite her up. Gonna need some more Loctite now, but get it nice and snug. Again, don't over tighten. These screws. Now the 1.3 is not fitting. Is it it's supposed to be 1.5 maybe? Yeah, 1.5. Okay, nice and snug. Again, don't over tighten. Get the other side. And next we went ahead and got the servo mounts put on here. Don't tighten them up all the way, just get them kind of snugged. And then our center brace for the damper. And then we've got our battery mount here, or battery adjustment bar. It basically is going to hold your battery nice and snug up against your battery case if you're running a hard case battery. That way you can tighten it down on there. We just tighten that in through the bottom here with a little nylon nut on top. Again, don't use any Loctite on that nylon nut at all, but you can see here it just slides back and forth a little bit to tighten up against your battery. Now, my driver doesn't really seem to fit all the way over the nut because the center brace is kind of in the way. It's almost a little too close. I kind of wish they would have kind of put the mount for this battery holder a little further away from that center brace. You can kind of, well, I guess you need room for the electronics, but yeah, not a big deal. You just be careful you don't strip the nut. And our last bit here is our spring post for the rear spring for the pod. There's the 3 position there. You can just put the whole post through, then drop your nut on and get a little bit of Loctite and put it on that bottom threading just to help that nut stay. You want to make sure it stays tight. You don't want this coming loose on you. You'll have a lot of slop in the rear end. Back to those servo mounts. I wanted to mention why I didn't want you to tighten them all the way down. Part of it is that you don't want to have it all the way tight, and then when you try to mount your servo through the actual servo tabs, you end up kind of putting tweak into the chassis. So don't tighten all the way down, and then you'll mount your servo into the tabs and kind of tighten those up a little bit and just kind of tighten it up as you go. Don't tighten it fully one way versus the other and then try to put it together. Like leave all 4 screws a little loose in that servo and servo mounts and then tighten them up as you go. Anyway, here we go. Let's do that. Bag number 3 contains our servo horn and our servo mount screws, as well as the servo horn screw. And then we've got our torque servo. You are going to want to make sure that your servo is centered here. The servo horn is centered here. So ideally, if you have your electronics, we don't have ours right now, but you would plug this in, turn on your transmitter, receiver, make sure everything's zeroed out, and then make sure you put your horn on straight. We are going to hold off on that we will put our horn on. Well, we'll put it on for now, but hopefully we'll be able to easily pop this guy back off before we power up our electronics, and we'll be able to center it with ease. We'll see here. But it does come with 3 M2.4 screws, and that's going to be the same screw for the servo horn here. Now, this servo horn is not aluminum, it's Delrin, so just be aware of that. Don't put any Loctite on there. You just snug it down manually. You can Loctite these if you want. Now we have our side links and side link plates. Pretty straightforward. We'll go ahead and drop our side link plates on. They should tuck right into these little pins. Looking good. We'll use our 2 countersunk M2x4s. A little bit of Loctite here, just a little bit, not much. You don't want to mess with the carbon fiber here, but you do want it to hold, so throw a little in there. Next, we'll do the pivot balls into our links. Now, there's 2 different size holes here. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell there, but this side looks to be slightly larger. That's the side the pivot ball goes on. They should have put a little label or an X or something. That would be nice. That'd make it easy. Worst case, you can use a caliper. And I mean, most people that are serious will have a caliper, but you can use that to try to measure it out. Looks like we're at 2.57 versus, well, they look the same to me. 2.99. Oh yeah. Well, this one's about the same. So I think what it's actually meaning is the face, which side is larger to push the ball through on the face, because this side is definitely larger than that side. So you're going to push your ball in through that way. This way is the same. You just want to see, you want the ball to go through easily. So your ball will basically drop into the larger diameter side easier than if you were to try to push it through this side. Okay, so yeah. And then when we put our screw in, you can see there's a tiny hole here. One side is larger than the other. You want to go in through the larger side. It mentions that here as well. The bigger hole is where you're going to put your screw through. Okay. If you're having any kind of issue putting the ball in, you can always just put it on your driver tip, and that'll help you get it in there, just keeping it aligned. I know sometimes people have problems, especially if you're older or just don't have very dexterous fingers. Use your tool, put it on there, and then you can pop it through. Very easy. Okay. Let's get our screws in, and then we'll mount these guys. So when you're tightening these little M1.4 screws down, you want to make sure that your ball joint is still loose. See how when I'm pushing on this, it's like it's kind of stiff. Okay, so that means we're too tight. So we're going to go ahead and back this guy off literally like a half turn maybe. And then you should be able to see that it'll kind of loosen up here. Maybe a little more, quarter turn. Just enough so it kind of will freely move. You want to make sure they all freely move. If they're tight, you're going to have binding, and that's not ideal. So that's pretty good there. That's pretty good. We can actually take this one down just a quarter turn maybe. And that'll get us just a little looser. Yep. And then same on this guy. Just make sure you're nice and loose. See, that's too tight. So we'll back this guy off just a half turn. Quarter turn, half turn. Much better. And that guy's a little too loose, so we need to tighten it up just a little bit. Quarter turn tighter. And yeah, that feels better. All right, so there we go. Now we can go ahead and mount these guys on here. There are 2 holes. There's an inside hole and an outside hole. We're going to use the outside hole to set this guy up. Again, as you learn the car and know how you want to drive and have adjustments to your track and what body you're running and all that stuff, your car weight, you're going to have to make adjustments. So we're going to go ahead and follow what they have here. But again, plenty of adjustability here. You can use different shims, less shims, raise this, lower this. Standard position, more steering. It shows you inside versus outside. And then again, your position on your number of shims, how much lower you drop your links. 3 is your standard, so using all 4 shims. Otherwise, you can angle it upward here and use less shims. Use 1 shim or 2 shims, and you'll get more in-corner steering. So if you're looking to easy drive or just to set it up in the standard, I just recommend using the outside hole and all 3 shims here. So we'll go ahead and take our M2x7, throw it in, outside hole again. Go ahead and put our shims on. Am I missing a shim? Uh-oh. Where did it go? Ah, there it is. I do kind of wish they'd include some extra hardware. Give us an extra couple of the M2x4 screws. The countersunks give us an extra shim. I'd like to have just like one extra of each, piece of hardware that you used a lot, just in case they forget to give you one. At least they're overcompensating a little bit, or in case you lose one. I know if you lose one, it's not really their fault, but a lot of companies out there do that. Actually, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to hold this, and these are M1.5, or they're 1.5 millimeter. So you want your screws on the outside, and you want the kind of neck there towards the inside. So we'll go ahead and use our driver here, and we're going to hold it. And actually, we also want to put just the tiniest bit of Loctite on here. So we'll go like this. We're going to throw just a tiny bit of Loctite on there, just like so. Again, we're not trying to get a bunch on there. Don't glob it on. Don't get it on the link itself. Just enough to get it onto your ball joint. And there we go. And we're going to hold this, and then we can tighten it on this side with our driver. Or you need two 1.5 millimeter drivers, but you should be able to get it snug enough just holding it and tightening it here. Nice. All right, next bag. Let's go. So bag 5 is our rear plate setup. This thing is thin. That is super thin. Now, mind you, that's going to be reinforced by this piece here. So that's helpful, but man, that's thin. And my guess is that's probably why they're asking us to apply CA glue. You can see here in the manual, apply CA glue with cotton swab on the exterior walls of the carbon plate. So basically, they want you to completely surround the plate edge on the outside and the inside with CA glue. Hopefully they have an upgrade for this. I don't know if this is the answer, because it's like I said, it's super thin. You take one good hit on the back, and my guess is this is not going to last long. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's stronger than I think it is. But yeah, it's looking thin. Looking thin. I haven't seen a rear pod this thin before. And cars get hit pretty hard from behind sometimes. So we'll see. Maybe if you're top level drivers, you don't see accidents that often, but medium and lower level, you see lots of cars hitting. So we'll see how this goes. Let's go ahead and get this guy CA'd, and then we'll start putting her together. So I'm just using this toothpick. I have some black, it's actually tire CA glue. I think it's slightly rubberized. I'm not sure, but it's black, and I think we're going to use that here. It seems to be soaking into the carbon just enough, and we need to use it up. And it's what's on my desk. So I'm going to go ahead and run this all the way around like that. Do not get it in this area here. Do not put any glue in there at all. Just around the outside, all the way back to here, and then we'll do the inside as well. But don't get any in there, because it'll mess with your tolerances. All right, our glue's all dried now. It's all sealed, hopefully reinforced, or whatever the plan is with that. One thing I noticed, funny enough, there's no quantities on the screws on this stuff. I kind of wish there were quantities. I was trying to let this dry, and I blew on it, and these blew away. I blew them right off my desk. I wasn't even blowing that hard, and I didn't even realize it at first, because I was so focused on trying to not get glue on my hands, and I just kind of blew, and I blew all the screws everywhere. And so I had to figure out how many screws there were of each kind, because I couldn't remember, and there's no quantities. And then, stupid me, I set it all back up, and then I did it again when I blew to dry off the inside. So dumb. Anyway, thought it was funny. But yeah, it'd be nice to have some quantities with the screws, just so you knew what screws and how many of each screw. Because if I didn't have video, I would have had to go back in here and try to count them, I guess. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this guy together. There are two different ride height bushings. There's a ride height bushing 1 and a ride height bushing 2. It comes with number 2, which is kind of a centered bushing, and this one is a offset. So you could actually flip it, I guess, if you really wanted to change the ride height and drop it super low. But yeah, there's different ride height bushings. It does come with one set though. Kind of wish it came with both. Kind of annoying. I'd have to order another set just to kind of raise the ride height a little. Anyway, all right, so let's go ahead and start here. Remember, your countersunk holes are at the bottom. And then let's go ahead and drop this guy in. Screws are going to come in through the bottom, and they're going to be, well, looks like these larger guys, like so. And this bitty here. And we are going to we're going to want to Loctite these guys. Is that correct? 2 by 6. No. Hold on. See, our bag has got all messed up. Should be these guys. Yeah, it is these guys. Kind of surprised they're big cap heads versus, again, more of a flush. Because everything else is countersunk and flush, so kind of interesting. Okay, so you're going to be set up like that. And now we're doing our axle mounts and motor mount. Right motor mount, left motor mount. Axle mount, really. Do Loctite these. You definitely want to make sure that you don't over tighten them. That's a thin piece of carbon right there. That edge right there is super thin. And right here, so you don't want to over tighten it because you could break the carbon. Just snug it up, nice and snug. Let the Loctite do the work. It's better off to use Loctite and not over tighten than it is to try to just tighten it up. Always Loctite, guys. I can't impress it enough. I've seen too many people build cars, not use Loctite, and then wonder why they fall apart on the track. Or they break pieces trying to over tighten them. So here we go. So this is how this guy's going to look now. All right. And what's next? What's next? Looks like we got to do this top brace. Top brace is going to go across here. And we're going to use these guys. Again, you're going into metal, so just a little bit of Loctite. And it goes a long way. The last bit of this is using our grub screw. It's a 9mm, and you should be able to screw it right in here. Uh-oh. It looks like our hole might be too big. That's not good. Hold on. Like it just pushed through, and then it seemed like it was getting tighter as I went in. I wonder if... Weird. So I was able to push it through. You saw probably I was able to push it through, but then this side actually screws in a little bit. Interesting. Anyway, this is supposed to be, so hopefully that doesn't fall out. If it does, maybe we can put a little bit of glue in there. I don't know if they over drilled that hole or the screw is too small. Not sure. Either way, we should be about 2mm. So we'll set this to 2mm. And that would be this guy here. Okay, so I have to take it down. Unfortunately, I think it's just going to slide out if I bring it down too far. Yeah, look at that. It just pushed right through. Uh-oh. Maybe I'll see if I can find a different grub screw. I'm not sure what this grub screw is for. I'm sure it's to set the rear droop. So I grabbed another M2 screw here just to see. Measured it out. It's basically 1.8. I bring it into here so we're not dropping into the threads. 1.93, okay? Whereas this little grub screw, 1.83, 1.84. Okay, so it's like 1/10 of a millimeter smaller diameter than a normal M2 screw. So that's what's going on there. That's why it just pushes right through for some reason. I don't know why this grub screw is just barely smaller. And like I said, it's like it's thicker towards the end because I can't pull it through. I can only push it through so far, and then it gets tighter. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, we can either super glue it, or maybe I'll just use an M2, a full M2 screw here, and just, again, this is just a droop screw, so it's going to help us with droop. We'll see. You could also glue it, like I said, but I think I'd rather not glue it. I'm not a fan of having to glue stuff, so we'll just use this guy for now. As long as there's no clearance issues, we should be good. It's kind of big and bulky though, so not ideal, but it is what it is. And then our last thing is just putting our little bushings in here, our ride height bushings, and on to the next step. All right, I went ahead and found a better M2 screw, just a little bit smaller, not quite so bulky. I don't know why they used a grub screw other than maybe to try to reduce mass there, but I don't think this is going to matter much. Again, it's just a droop. It's going to basically sit on here like so, and it's going to adjust our pod squat or pod droop. So we should be fine there. If we need a longer one, we can. They actually show it here set up. You can see you have less on power steering with increased rear traction if you raise the rear pod, and then center is going to be your standard. And then if you drop it down real low and kind of angle that guy, you're going to have decreased rear traction, but more on power steering. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on. Pivot mount part 1. That's going to be our pivot mount that's going to go in here, part of the mount onto here. Should be pretty simple. Let me get all the stuff. All right, so we'll grab our rear pivot mount here. There are 2 sides to this. You can kind of see there's a recessed side and then a non-recessed side. Your little bushing goes in the recessed side, so it sits nice and flush. Okay, then we'll use this is our tensioning screw, or it's going to tighten it up, get rid of the slop in there. You do want to use some Loctite on that. And then we can go ahead and screw this guy in. And oops, it actually goes in the top here, or bottom. We're upside down. This guy goes this way. There we go. So I'll go ahead and tighten that up. You don't need to over tighten it, but just make it snug. Then we can drop our pivot ball in. The pivot ball is going to go in this way. So drop it in through the front. Okay, and it comes out the back like that. You can see it in our photo. We can tighten this guy up a little more now. That should kind of tighten up our pivot ball just a little so it's not so sloppy. Alrighty. Then we'll take our spacer, throw our spacer on there, and screw our pivot ball in. We'll use a little tiny bit of Loctite on this as well. And there we go. Make sure that guy's nice and snug. And don't over tighten, but you do want to make sure you're snug. And we should be good there. Okay. So now we're just going to take our pod, stick it on here like so, and then we're going to mount our side links to our side link brace. Again, we'll use a little bit of Loctite, and we'll tighten from the ball joint down. We're using the M2x4 screws, so the shorter of the 4 screws that we have here, or the 2 different screws we have here. Get a little bit of Loctite, and then we come in through the top and screw it right in. We'll get it started, And then once we're a little snug, we can hold it on this side. You can grab another driver if you want, but you don't have to. It's kind of easy, easy enough just to hold it here, snug it down, and you should be golden there. Let's go ahead and get the other side. Make sure our little pod here isn't twisting around on us. There we go. And we can do this side now. Easy as that. I think our droop screw's a little too far right now. We'll pull this guy back a little bit just to make sure we can sit how we should sit here. Okay, next up we're going to go ahead and mount our center, our actual pivot here. You can see that it adjusts, it's slidable. So you can slide the thing forward and backwards. And adjusting that is going to adjust the way the car handles pretty significantly. You can see here, there's different ways of doing it. Improved rotation with no shims. Standard position is a 1 millimeter shim. That's what we've got in the middle here. And then you can do a more stable with 2 1 millimeter shims. And again, that's the distance here. Again, didn't come with any extra shims. I wish it came with 2 shims. That way we could shim it up if we wanted to get that extra spacing there. So unfortunately, we won't be able to do that. But setting it up this way, we've got this alignment tool, which is nice. This helps make sure that our pod pivot brace is aligned correctly. It's straight. Okay, so we're going to put that guy in there. And we're going to get our 2 screws. We'll get them in there. Again, we're going to Loctite these guys as well. Then we'll make sure everything's nice and aligned and snugged. Let's just get these started first. We don't even really need this tool yet. Okay. And now you can see there's kind of a little bit of a ability for it to move here. Not a lot, but it's definitely going to adjust, make our tweak different if it's not straight. So we want to make sure it's very aligned, very straight. Let's go ahead and tuck this guy in there. Did we tighten it up too much? We might have snugged it just a little too much. Back those guys off, and now our alignment tool fits. Now, I don't know how that works if we have, I guess if we have other shims in there. Well, no, because if we shimmed it differently, this tool's thickness would be different. So that's interesting. I guess you got to just kind of trust it. If you decide to shim it and adjust this here, or make a tool for it, or buy a different tool, I don't know. But you definitely need to try to make sure this is straight. So make sure it's nice and tucked on there, and then we can go ahead and tighten these guys down. Again, don't over tighten. Loctite will do its work, but you definitely want to make it nice and snug. Okay. Seems all right. All right. Part 8. We're going to do the rear suspension now. There's rear shock tower brace or spring brace. Got some more grub screws, just 2 little grub screws here. Again, 0.9 millimeter. And it's asking us to CA glue these guys in to the spring collar here. You can see it here. So we're going to take just a tiny bit of CA glue, and that'll help it sit in there. I kind of wish we didn't have to. I wish they just made the plastic screw holes tight enough. I think we need a little more, actually. There we go. Made it tight enough so that we could just screw it in. But these are just plastic. Basically, take them down until they're a little less than flush. Basically, a little bit more recess. You should have about 2 millimeters. So check that here. Use your bottom of your caliper. There we go. Basically give us 2 millimeters right there. That's what you're going to want. So we'll go ahead and do the other one, get them glued up. And now we can go ahead and screw them into our brace here, which I guess is kind of, you got to bring your driver through and try to get these to thread in backwards, I guess. So we're kind of unscrewing it essentially. Okay. We're going to leave just a tiny bit of space there. Again, you're going to use this to adjust your springs. And so that's why you got to leave, make sure you leave at least 2 millimeters there. You can kind of see it's compared to your carbon fiber, you should be poking just above that carbon fiber, just a little bit there. That's a good way to measure. Actually, let's do this. I'm curious. Yeah, basically have your screws sticking out just a barely more than your carbon fiber because that's 2 millimeters. One side. There we go. All right. So it'll be set up like that. Then we can drop our springs on. They should just tuck on there. Like so. Here's the different springs. Extra soft, soft, medium, hard, extra hard. Comes with mediums. Softer is going to be less reactive, reduce your on-power steering. And stiffer springs, it's going to make it more reactive and improve your on-power steering. Okay. Next, we're going to be mounting this guy up onto the brace here somehow, some way. All right, we're on to bag number 9. This is going to be our hard body mounts. If you're not running a hard body, you don't necessarily need to put these on. We're probably not going to put these on because we do have a Lexan body we're going to run. We are going to go ahead and put our rear spring tower brace here and the mounts for that. These are actually pretty cool mounts. They have slots in them to help reinforce this here. So you can see they slot in. That's pretty slick. So I dig that. Helps reinforce your hard body mounts, which is definitely nice. Actually, these go on the other side. They go like this. My bad. You want the slot on the front. It's a little bit more forward facing. And these are angled as well. So just make sure you get them on the right side. See that? See how it's kind of angled? You want that angled side back. And the flat side to the front, sort of like that. All right, let me go ahead and get these screwed in. We're going to use a little Loctite and our countersunk screws. We'll be back. And now our rear springs, spring brace, spring towers just goes in like so. Super easy peasy. We decided to go ahead and put the body mounts in just in case, and just so you can see what it looks like with the body mounts properly in there. They sit nice and flush. They look clean. I really dig that. I know there's some designs out there that have really fragile body mounts for the hard bodies, and I'm not a fan of constantly breaking those body mounts. So having some nice, robust body mounts here, definitely helpful. Definitely something I appreciate. Because these guys, they're not breaking. They're pretty stout. And again, they're aluminum, so there's no reason they should break. You'd have to get hit pretty hard to have an issue with bend there. And you'd probably break your body mount anyway, like on the body side. Speaking of that, there are some marker tools here. You have to trim out some parts of the mount, Dremel out part of the mount, so that there's clearance basically for your links here. So you can use these little guides here if you're running a hard body. And yeah, it'll just kind of, you can mark it with a pencil or a marker and just kind of Dremel it out. It says here, due to the fact that body clips have different measures, make sure that the clip is attached to the body shell before making the marking. So definitely make sure that everything's properly mounted in the body, and then you can trim it out, like you can see there. Okay. That says use the optional shims to raise the body clips. So apparently those are not included either, which is unfortunate. But if you needed to, you could raise your body mounts up just a little bit with a shim. And they're showing that there. No part number for those shims. I guess they're just suggesting you find some. All right, on to the knuckles. This part's really cool. This is one of the things that helps sets this car apart from a lot of the other cars out there. It's using like a pillow ball joint type setup, kind of like the 8 scale cars. So that's super cool. I'm digging the way they do a lot of this. There's a ton of adjustment in this car. It's pretty insane how much adjustment there is, from the links here to your pivot point here. All that's adjustable. Your link height's adjustable. Obviously, your shocks up, your center shock will be adjustable on there. Your rear droop, your ride height, like so much adjustability. It's insane. So I dig that. It isn't overly complicated. There's a lot of use of shims though. So if you need to like shim this up or remove these shims, and shim this, shim that, which is, I guess, kind of standard when you start to get really kind of in deep with your adjustments. But there are some cars out there that don't have quite as many shims that are still adjustable. I am digging these links. They look pretty beefy and robust. And again, you can always tighten it down with a screw to kind of take out any kind of slop that you might have in there. They definitely feel good. And they're a little beefier than some of the other ones out there for other cars that tend to break a lot. So we'll see how these last and how durable they are. But I'm excited. This thing's looking awesome. And this front end is cool. So let's get into that. All right, first thing we're going to do is take our set screws and put them into our lower control arms here. These are basically droop screws, and you're going to want them to be 1 millimeter out the top. And we're going to go through the flat side here. So there's 2 different sides. You have kind of this dropped down side and then a flat side. So we're going to come in through the top, and you're going to have 2 millimeters exposed through here. So let's see. Oh no, we zeroed out. All right, so 2 millimeters from that top side there. So we can actually back it out just a tiny bit, but you get the point. Again, you're going to be able to adjust those for your front droop. And yeah, depending on how you want your car set up, 2 millimeters may not be the answer. But again, we're just starting off with the 2 because we're going to do the standard setup. All right, next, we'll go ahead and do the axles next. The axle, you're going to definitely want a thread lock. So we're going to use this side here. We're running out of thread lock on our cap, so we'll add a little bit more. And this is going to go in the flat side. And there's 2 sides you want to do into the flat. Tighten that guy down. Get another 4 millimeter. Oh no, it's not going to reach. This one doesn't reach for some reason. Oh, because of that. That's okay. Can use some needle nose and just get them nice and snug. Be sure when you're tightening this down, you're not grabbing on the actual axle shaft. You should only be grabbing onto the base there. And if you can use like these kind of pliers as well, potentially, depending on what you have available and how much space you have. But the shock tower or shock pliers are generally pretty safe to use because they're aluminum. They're softer material, so they're not going to damage us. But you're fine as long as you don't grab here, right? Don't grab this. Make sure you grab only the base, only the spot that's down at the base there. Okay, and if you had nicer pliers than what we have, definitely wouldn't have any issue there. But yeah, just don't mar up your actual axle shaft. Jeez, that's hard to say. All right, let's move on. So now we're going to go ahead and put our pivot balls into our knuckles here. And so these guys just kind of drop right in, like so. And then we have these little caps. And these little caps have this special tool here. And you put the cap onto the end of the tool here in some way. There we go. Okay. And then you can screw this guy in. Now don't thread lock this. These are like plastic little end caps here. And make sure you're not going to cross thread either. So just go in slow and feel it. And if you need to, back it out and then tighten again. And back out till you feel it click and then tighten again Just make sure you're going in as straight as possible. Definitely helps if this thing sits on the tool a little more square. It doesn't feel like it's sitting very flat on this tool. There we go. It's a little better, maybe? I don't know. Definitely not sitting flat on the tool. Maybe we'll try different. There's extra ones, so that's good. I appreciate that. Okay, that one seems to, well, sort of. Either way, we're going to work this guy, and we're going to make it work. And just make sure you're going in straight, you're not cross-threading, and the tool should definitely help. I just feel like the little, I guess they're nuts, they don't sit on the tool very well. But your pivot ball should be nice and snug. There shouldn't be really any play in there. And you can tighten this guy down. Don't over tighten it. You don't want to strip it. But you also don't want it so tight that it doesn't move, right? That's too much. So then we can just back this guy off just a little. Got 1/8 of a turn. And look at that, a world of difference. Okay. Pretty cool design. Like I said, my only issue right now is this tool fitting into the little screws here and not being quite so flush. I don't know what's going on there. And there is a side that is meant to go into the tool and a side that is meant to go to the ball joint or the ball end. So make sure you're doing that correctly as well. See, you want it to kind of sit in there and cushion it. Okay? We'll do one more and then we'll do the other side. So it just drops in. And here we go. Make sure you're as flat as possible. Back it off till you feel it click, and then you can screw it in. Just be sure you don't strip it. It definitely wants to pop out. It's not very deep. That key doesn't go very deep. Ugh, they should give you a little bit more meat on there, man. Or something, I don't know. I could see that easily stripping out, especially after having to remove it or put it back in or... Oh yeah, see, like that one already almost feels stripped out. And there's still play in there. Not a fan of that. Look at that. And I'm like, and it's not even, it's still kind of got, it's got a little play in there. So I can't really get it any tighter. Maybe. Anyway, do your best. This part, definitely rough. I feel like this could be a little bit better. I get that it's hard because there's tolerances, right? Like you only have so much space on the back here because the rest has to be that concave portion for the ball joint to sit in. But you need enough on there to where this doesn't just strip out every time you try to tighten it. So be careful doing it, guys. Be careful. And man, it just takes the tiniest amount of backing out or over tightening. Watch how, so it's super tight, right? Not super tight, but like it's not moving, right? I have to push it and I can feel tons of resistance in there. So, and then watch how little I turn it. Just the tiny, okay, we're keyed in, just the tiniest, that's it. Like a 1/10 of a turn. And now we're a lot more loose. Okay. So just be aware. It doesn't take much. Another 1/10 of a turn, and now it's basically just going to fall. These are tiny parts, guys, so just be careful, be slow, be purposeful in what you're doing, and I think you'll be good. I like the design. It's actually really cool, and it feels really good. So we'll see once it's all together how smooth it is, but I think they might have something here. I hate that strips out. But again, these are what, 5-cent parts, and they give you extras, so I can't complain too much. Definitely worth it if the design is superior from a performance standpoint and the smooth smoothness standpoint. So I just realized, I think what might actually help is if this was a little more shallow so that you could actually, because it doesn't seat, right? Like it doesn't, it's not up against, this shoulder is not up against the wall of the screw. So you just kind of, it flops around in there. And if this was maybe just a little more flush, just a tiny bit, and we're talking so small here, guys, but if it were more flush with the actual screw, it would not move around while you're trying to screw it in. Because that's part of the problem, is it moves around while you're trying to screw it in. And so if it were more flush on there and sitting flat on this shoulder, you might have a much easier time there. So it just takes some practice and then you can get it. It's really not that bad, but definitely different and definitely takes practice. Man, it's crazy. Barely over tighten it. And it's like super tight on the ball. All right. So there are holes in here because you're going to use a driver into the ball joint to be able to screw it in. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and mount the knuckle onto the arms now. Pay very close attention to make sure you put the correct arm in the correct position. So basically this is up, should be pointing up, and then your droop screw is gonna be on the same side as your knuckle steering link mount. Okay, so it's gonna go like so. Let's go ahead and get our driver here, get this guy started, and then I'll show you it assembled. You don't screw them all the way in, okay, because you're going to use these little tools to measure the distance. Top, droop screw on the same side. The flat portions go towards the bottom on this upper flat portion. So basically the flat goes to the inside, the upper flat, lower flat, both are on the inside. We've got this shock mount here and then this little hole here. Those go on this side. So that's the way it's set up. It doesn't show it very well in the manual, but that's the way you're going to want to go. All right. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and then we'll measure out the distances here. I believe it's 2 millimeters on the top and 2.5 on the bottom to get you a little bit of camber going on. All right. Now I just want to show you the proper, make sure your ball joints aren't tight or too loose. So this is a good example where this ball, it's not tight. Like I can move it, but it's also not quite as loose as it should be. Whereas this bottom one, it's a little loose, and it's even got just a little bit of play. Look at this, just a little bit of play. So we can easily take our tool, give it again, just like a quarter turn, maybe a quarter turn, not even a quarter turn, an eighth of a turn. And that's going to help remove some of that play. So now we really don't have any play there. Okay, and it's still nice and loose. And then this top one, again, just back it off. Man, like we can back it off just the tiniest amount. Boom. And now, not quite. One more. And now it's plenty loose. No play. None at all. And loose. Okay. And that's exactly how you want them. This one still feels like it's got a little bit of play in there. You can see that ball moving in and out. Let me try to get that a little tighter. Oh, see, this is where this feels like it's kind of stripping again. Yeah, it's good enough. All right. So now we can use these. And these are different widths. So one is 1.25 or 2.5 in thickness, and one is 2 in thickness. So we can go ahead and drop this down on the top, and there should be 2 millimeters of space between the ball and the arm. So we're going to go ahead and back this back out because we tightened them too much. Just back them out enough. Fit our 2 millimeter gauge in there. Let's back it out a little more. And that guy fits right on there. And now we can tighten it up just enough until this is on there and pops out. Okay. And it's not up against the knuckle, it's just to the ball actually. Okay, you can see it still moves because it's not tight against the knuckle, but it tightens up against the ball, and we can pop that out, and that's going to give us the correct distance. So we're equal on both sides and compared to the bottom as well. So now we'll back this guy out quite a bit because this is the bottom. We need 2.5 millimeters. We'll drop our little gauge in there. Tighten it up until the gauge feels a little tight there, a little snug. Okay. You can see still have movement in the ball, but it's a little tight now. A little too tight. Little quarter turn, and it pops right out. So now we have the proper 2 millimeter and 2.5. We'll do the other side. We'll move on. And there's our camber adjustment. That's the top. They're calling that the camber adjustment. And then your bottom is your actual front width adjustment. Okay. And then just in case you ever need to order these little guys, there's the part number KSPVB. They're the knuckle special pivot balls. Moving on. Number 11. Oh, look at that. There's a good picture of it so you can kind of see which direction things go. You can see that hole to the back. Or, well, to the front of the car, technically, because this is the back. But, yeah, it's opposite of that. So, yep. All right. Let's go ahead and get these mounted up. So, we're going to go ahead and assemble our front bulkhead. They call it a front buckle. But this is going to be the forward portion of the bulkhead. This is the rear. And we're going to use this 9 millimeter shaft in the upper, the 9.5 in the lower. Again, make sure you have your A-arms properly facing the correct direction, right? Flat on the insides, raised and raised on the outsides. You're also going to push the axle shaft or the pivot shaft through the front here. And you're going to go through the top hole. Again, you can make adjustments later, but I would recommend building it the way they recommend. So this is going to push through the front here. It will not come out the back. That's going to be held in by a screw. We put a little tiny screw in there, these guys here. It's a 1.3. Again, don't over tighten this because you're going into plastic. You're just tightening it enough to hold the pivot shaft in so that the shaft does not slide out. Again, you don't have to tighten it much at all. And you're going to have a bunch of play in there. And we're going to try to minimize that play with this screw a little bit. You're going to minimize the rest by using our shims here, these special shims. And that's going to be able to give you the ability to shim this forward or back depending on how you want to do it. Okay, but I mostly care right now about making sure this pin isn't moving too much out here. We want to make sure this is nice and snug. Okay, again, don't overdo it. You might still see a little bit of play in there, but that's kind of what you're going for there. So there's no play here. Okay, we'll go ahead and do this other side. Just until we're snug. Should be good there. We can go a little bit more. And that's just going to prevent that pin from falling out. Now the lower, with our 9.5, you're going to come through, again, make sure you're facing the right way. You're going to come through the front, or the back, excuse me. Come on, guy. All right. Jeez, fiddly. All right, like so. Drop this guy in through the back. We're going to use the lowest of the mounts there. So highest here, lowest here. Okay. Just like so. And then those are going to be held in with some grub screws that go right in there. That's going to be these little guys. And they're going to be they're going to be 9 millimeter, 0.9 millimeter, excuse me. And you might want to use a little Loctite on them. Not a lot, just a little. Make sure you're nice and flush there. And there you go. Just tighten them up, snug it. Don't over tighten again. You can easily strip these things because they are tiny. let the Loctite do its job. Alrighty. Easy peasy. So now we can go ahead and do the shims. We're going to do one shim on each side. These things are tiny. Don't lose them. Kind of wish they gave you an extra one, at least one, just in case you lost it. It fell out. You got in an accident. Shim popped out. Any of those sorts of things happen. Oof. We got to get this guy to go on there. It's kind of just clips on like a C-clip, sort of. There we go. We're going to put one on each side. Okay. You can see very minimal play. Well, like no play now, and it's nice and free still. This front end looks pretty good. I'm digging it. I like the adjustment in it. You can see here we've got your camber gain adjustments along the top, those 3 different positions, and then your roll center adjustment for the bottom A-arms here, and then your caster here, basically your 2 shims, one on each side, both on one side, or both on the back to get your different caster degrees. You can go 0, 1.5, or 3 degrees of caster. Super cool. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get the steering links built here. Should be fairly easy. So now we're gonna go do the steering links and the front assembly, mounting it to the main chassis. I did go ahead and put together our links and link ends. You're gonna wanna do these at 8.5 millimeters. So we're right there. And remember, they thread opposite. One thread's opposite the other, so that way you can turn the turnbuckle and it'll bring them in or bring them out. So just when you're threading them, try to keep your turnbuckle as centered as possible and get to that 8.5 millimeters. We have these 2 screws here, which will mount our front end to the chassis right here. So we'll go ahead and put that on right now. Don't forget to Loctite it, super important. All right, and then we're going to put our 7 millimeter. We have 7 millimeter and 3 millimeter ball ends, and these ones are going to go on the steering knuckles along with our 3 shims. So we're going to do 3 1 millimeter shims here, or 4 actually, 4 shims. Yeah, that gives us the ability to adjust. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of Loctite on this as well. Not a ton, just enough to kind of help hold it in there. And you're going to want to go into the inside, well, outside most hole. So the hole right here. And then again, you can adjust this later. That's the whole point of the second hole here, is to be able to adjust if you'd like. Then we'll go ahead and put our balls into our servo horn here. Just be careful. It's hard to get your driver in straight. Make sure you're threading in the ball straight. And don't forget, this is Delrin, so do not Loctite it. Just get it snug. Don't go crazy. Most importantly, don't cross thread it. Like I said, make sure you're going in as straight as possible and get that threading started. You can even get it started by hand if you'd like, or have it loose. Use a smaller driver. I've done that before, or I'll use like a 1-3 just to keep it kind of loose, and then just get a couple turns in there until we start to get tight, like so. Okay, and then you can tighten it up once you know it's threaded in straight, and just snug it up that little bit of extra. All right. So this other position up here is for your Ackerman. Like you can see here, standard Ackerman is going to be towards the outside, and then less aggressive with more Ackerman, you would mount it to the inside here. You move your ball joint there, and it'll get a little adjustment on the Ackerman there. Ooh, look at that. Our knuckle almost hits. Not that it matters, because you're never going to have that much steering angle. But yeah, I was just like, what? Why is it stuck? It's because it's hitting on our droop screw. All right, so that's it. And oh, then the shims. Yeah, so you get more responsive in-corner steering with less shims. So if you're looking for something more calm, you're going to do it like this. And if you want it to be more responsive and a little bit more twitchy, especially on turning inward, right, you're going to want to put less shims and kind of lower that link. Okay. Next, we're going to do shocks. Let's get our links installed, though. So these guys should just pop right on. There is a open side and a closed side. Go ahead and just drop it down, and you should be good there. If you need to twist one to get it facing the correct direction, like this might actually be that. Let's see. Yeah, see, we've got one upside down. We're going to have to adjust and make sure that we don't change our spacing. So do one way and one the other way, and you should be good, and it won't have adjusted your spacing. Oh, no, hold on. Yeah, get it as close as you can. We'll double check here. And you can also adjust it once it's on there. Yeah, see, we're at 9 now. So hold on, let's pull this guy back in. One full turn. 8.7. We're going to go ahead and just install it, and then we'll adjust it appropriately. You can use like a little one of these little guys. This one might be too big. Oh, it is. Or you can just use your driver. Either way. Going back should tighten this up a little. I lied. It loosened it. Forward tightens up. At least on this side. You can also try to make sure that you're doing it the same on both sides. Flip your turnbuckle around if you need to. That way you are always adjusting the same direction. So you can go forward to tighten, forward to tighten. Just make sure they match. And we'll do that here in a minute. We'll flip it around. All right, and there we go. So now we've got them both facing the same direction. One thing you want to do is make sure that your ball joints are nice and loose here, your link ends and ball joints, and you can see I'm barely touching this guy, and it's able to move freely. These ball joints and link ends are probably some of the best I've used. We almost always have to like use pliers to kind of squeeze them and get them so that they loosen up, but not so loose that they pop off. These ones popped on nice and snug, but then they also are plenty loose. Like you can see there's very little binding in there at all. Like it's super loose. So that's good. Yeah, you can see we've got free movement here, free movement here. That's what you want. If you go up too high, they'll get stuck because of the shims and stuff, but you're never compressing that much. You can just see here that, like I said, plenty of free movement, and that's exactly what you want. So that's awesome. Links and ball ends here, freaking smooth. I dig that. All right, let's get our shocks on. We're going to use the 3mm pivot ball on the lower arm here. Remember, no Loctite because you're going into plastic. And then we're going to use the 4mm pivot ball with the 2 shims. And you do want to put a little bit of Loctite on there because you're going into metal. You don't want that guy backing out. Then we're going to use some shock grease on our shocks here. There's 45, 35, 25, and 15,000 that are the most commonly used ones out there. We're going to use 15 on this guy. The reason you're going to use 15 is because the shocks are at such an angle. So you don't need to have quite as much dampening because of the angle they're at. If they were more vertical, you would need more dampening. And also, it's going to depend on your track, your driving style, your conditions, what classes you're running in, your body weight. All that stuff is going to play into which grease you want. So start with the 15. That's what's recommended. And then from there, you can go ahead and make adjustments if you need to. And again, I usually just kind of take my shock, dip it in there, get them nice and lubed up here. And then we can drop our spring on and our shock. And actually, it'd be more ideal to put your spring on the shock body side first so you don't get grease on it. If you get grease all up in your spring, you're going to end up Oh, that's not good. If you get grease on your spring, you're going to end up having more maintenance. Ooh, look at that. So we had a little piece of metal shaving there. Just be careful. I guess we should have inspected that first, but okay, we're good now. Nice. All right, go ahead and get our spring on. And there we go. Okay, and then we can go ahead and pop this guy on. Super simple. Again, one side is more open than the other. Pop it on. Same thing here. Pop it on. And there we go. Nice and smooth. And then you have your adjustment collar here, so you can make adjustments and preload your spring just a little bit if you need to, depending on your ride height and all that kind of stuff. So you can see here they're recommending that 15K, also the 2 shims, and this tells you here the different spring rates. Okay, those are optionals. It comes with the mediums. Okay, now if you want to adjust your shims here, that'll adjust your angle, and basically that can also adjust the softness of the spring. Essentially, the more horizontal you get, the softer the spring is going to be, the less it's going to do its job, essentially. Okay, all right, let me get the other one on and we'll move on. Before we move on to the rear dampers, I just wanted to express just how tight this is. Not tight in a bad way, but like there is so little slop and play. Like I'm trying to show you here, there's no play in here. It's wild. And it seems like any amount of play is actually coming from the servo itself. Like just a tiny bit that the servo would have from the gears in there. Yeah, pretty amazing. Super, super snug and tight. And again, you can adjust how tight they are here. So if you feel like there's any amount of play, just tighten these little screws up and it will tighten up the knuckle there if there's any play in those balls. The shims in here, no play there on the actual A-arms. I mean, everything is just precision perfect. You can see there's just the tiniest bit, but like compared to most other front ends, see, I've got a little bit still in this ball, just the tiniest bit in this ball. But I don't even care. It's so minimal. Like I could tighten this up just like a 1/8 turn and that would get rid of that. Unfortunately on this one, I've kind of stripped it trying to tighten it, but that's still like, I don't even really care, honestly. It's so minimal. It's ridiculous. And you guys, you got to realize I'm like zoomed in on this. So you're going to see every movement, but look at that. Like that's it. It's so wild. Like you barely even feel it. It's just a click. Anyway, I'm kind of ranting here, but this is so minimal on the play. It's insane. And like I said, most of the play is actually right here when the servo horn moves. See that? Like when you can kind of see the servo horn moving back and forth here. A little bit in this ball, it looks like. Same thing on this side. But even so, like pretty wild. That's so good. So good. So good. All right, let's move on to the dampers. So we're going to start by putting all of our pivot balls into the appropriate spots here. We're going to use the 4mm pivot balls. Hold on, let me check. Center. 3mm pivot balls. 3mm pivot balls here. And we're going to use the forwardmost mount. Again, make sure you lock tight into the metal. And yeah, so we'll use the 3mm on our center damper. So one here, and then one here in the center of the chassis. And then we will do our sides. Those will be the 4s. Actually, 4s go here on the sides. And then these balls with the screws will go on the outside here. So 4s in the center, 3s in the center dampener, and then these screws and pivots on the outsides. So my guess as to why they're using a 4mm versus a 3mm on this here is so that you can put a 1mm shim under there if you want to adjust the angle of your dampers. Not that that should really matter much here, but it is interesting that they do 4mm on the sides here and 3mm on the centers. I'm not sure why, other than putting a 1mm spacer here. I mean, you might even want to do a 1mm spacer here, so I'm kind of surprised they didn't give you 4mm all the way around so you could do that. It's just kind of interesting. I do usually prefer when a car uses like all the same hardware when possible, like the same size screws, the same size pivot balls, and all that stuff is pretty much universal versus having 3mm, 4mm, 2mm, 1.4, 2, 2.5, like all the different sizes. Like I like when they're all consistent, but I understand when there's reasons they need to use different hardware sizes. But it's interesting here they chose to do a 3 and a 4. I don't know why not just go 4 all the way around. Shrug. All right, let me get the rest going on here. We're going to use 15,000 on the center damper and the side dampers as well. Okay, so just keep that in mind. This small end here goes onto the threaded side here. And again, if you're having trouble tightening this on, maybe you don't have the grip strength, don't use pliers. You don't want to mar this up. Grab a paper towel or something with a little grip on it, more than maybe your fingers are slippery or something, and then try screwing it in that way. And if it's still kind of spinning, use some shock pliers like this, and don't squeeze hard, just enough to get your link end on here. Okay, like so. You don't want to mar this up at all. You want that to stay super smooth and clean. And then, like I said, we're going to use 15K on that. Just get a little bit. Don't want to overdo it. Come on, grease, come off. There we go. And we can drop this guy right in here and then wipe off the excess. Okay. And then this guy will drop in here and here. All right, we're going to go ahead and get these ball joints and screws in. We're going to screw in from the bottom, ball joint on the top. And we're going to use a little bit of Loctite there too as well. And actually, probably would be better to stick the screw through the hole and then try to put the Loctite on. That way you're not getting Loctite all over your carbon. Not a huge deal, but it's not ideal. And then snug that down. And again, you don't have to over tighten it. If you are using Loctite, you should just be able to snug it by hand basically here, and the Loctite will do the rest of the work, holding in that ball joint in place. And it does tighten up a little better if you hold the screw and then snug it from the ball joint side. And again, it's still a 1.5mm. So if you don't have two 1.5s, just do it by hand. Like I said, you don't need to tighten it that much if you're using Loctite. Should be good. All right, let's go ahead and assemble these guys. Again, the smaller link end is the threaded side. And thread them in the same way we did the center. And 15K it and plop them on. Now, whenever I do these pivot balls and link ends and any of this kind of stuff, you always want to check and make sure it's nice and loose. If it's too tight at all for any reason, you need to loosen that up. And these seem just fine. They're loose. They're just a little bit snug. I mean, but they don't like stick, right? You can see this kind of, if it just kind of moves gently. This one's a little tighter. If for any reason you feel like it's too tight, you can very carefully, guys. This car has been one of the better when it comes to link ends. But if you need any, just kind of barely squeeze just the tiniest bit along that ball, basically compressing the plastic onto the ball, and then that'll get you just a little bit looser. Just don't do it too hard. And because if you do, you could break it, you could slip and snap the piece, crush the little eyelet. Again, just the tiniest bit of squeezing and compressing. Tiny bit, little squeezes here and there, and it'll help loosen this guy up just a little. And just be very careful doing it, guys. Like I said, this car doesn't really need it. I'm just kind of showing you, trying to see if I can get this guy a little looser. There we go. You just don't want to squeeze it so much that the ball will just pop off, right? You don't want that ball popping off. But now look, now it kind of flops around a little bit looser, which is always a good thing. Okay, so you probably won't need to do it. I wouldn't worry about it too much, but if you're kind of a perfectionist, you want to make sure every ball joint is nice and loose. And see, this guy is already very loose. This guy, a little tight on this side, the same as this one was for some reason, but I'm not worried about it. You just want to make sure they're equal. So here, let's go ahead and pop this off and I'll show you. Okay, so as long as they are loose pretty equally, they don't feel like they have a ton more resistance in one over the other, then you're good. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that we are equal there. And grease this guy up a tiny bit. And these do have little vent holes here, so the air doesn't keep suction inside there and cause issues. And yeah, super easy build, guys. This build has been very simple, very easy. Are we too far back? We might have put our... I think these actually want to go up forward here. Yeah, we want them to go forward. These are body mounts. What am I doing? Busy talking and not paying attention. So we'll pop these out and move them forward here. Whoops. All right, that's going to be better. Yeah, that's how you want it. I don't know what I was thinking. All right, all fixed. Much better. Looking good here. So you can see here some setup tips. For high grip, use harder grease. For low grip, use softer grease. Also, the more angle you have, stiffer feeling, less roll. The more flat it is, softer feeling, more roll. Again, that has to do with if you were to angle these with shims. Okay, they didn't include any shims, unfortunately. Would have been nice to include maybe one 1 millimeter shim for each side. So two shims would have been nice, but I get it. All right, next we're going to get our rear spring set up here. So bag 15 is simply an upper nut, a spring, and a spring retainer. Make sure you're sitting on there properly. This guy just drops on here. And tighten this down. Just make sure you're going on straight. And it's a 4 millimeter. And we can tighten this guy down. And as you can see here, the tighter it is, it's going to increase your ride height. And the reduces your droop. And then the looser it is, you're going to decrease your ride height and increase your droop. And just make sure as you're screwing this guy down that it stays on the retainer properly. You're going to have to go down quite a bit here. We probably went a little too far. Did they give any tip on how far to go? No. There's other spring rates as well for that. We're going to go ahead and just kind of make it nice and flush here. It's hard to tell until you get your body and your electronics and all that on there to see kind of how tight you're going to need that. But that's a cool way to do that. I dig it. And you would never dampen there, just so you know. You don't put grease in there because all your dampening happens here. So grease goes here, no grease there. Keep that nice and clean. All right. Let's look at the next bag, final assembly. Looks like our battery tray and our wheels. And here we go, final stretch. We're going to go ahead and get our diff, remove this side with our little grub screw. Get that ready. Pop in our bearings. Nice and flush. Oh no, did I put that one in backwards? I put this one in backwards. Smooth move, Ken, smooth move. Here we go. Flip that guy around. Here we go. Slide our diff in. And I believe this guy goes... Does it actually go this way? It goes this way. And we're going to want to make sure that we've got just the tiniest bit of left and right play here. So what I usually do will go ahead and tighten this down just enough. So I'll go through and make sure I'm holding the diff in, pushed all the way this way, and then give myself just the tiniest bit of space there and snug this guy down. Again, I'm talking almost nothing. Like, you shouldn't really see any left to right play here at all. You can see if I get real close in there, we got this tiniest little bit of left and right. See that? That's all I want, just a little bit, because you don't want it snug and super tight up against the bearings. You want just a little bit of give there, at least in my opinion. Tell me down in the comments if you disagree. But there you go, nice and free. And now we get to add these wheels. So we have 11 millimeters that come with the kit. They offer a 14 millimeter. These are Delrin, so you're going to want to scuff these up if you're gluing, because glue doesn't stick to Delrin very well. I hope they come with some molded tires that are highly precise from my understanding. The problem was getting the molds for molded, injection molded tires as precise. Now, the huge benefit that these wheels and this diff offers is that it sits completely flat in 3 different points, right? So traditional Mini Z wheels on the rears just have like 2 little pegs, and your wheel isn't always going to be true as far as the centering of it. You're going to have a little wobble potentially as it spins. As this guy spins, it could wobble because you're just you're off a little bit, and you end up like this, just with the tiniest bit of, well, that's a lot, but just a tiny bit of wobble. And at high speeds, that really amplifies. So part of what Jose designed here was a new setup that makes sure that your wheel is concentric. It's completely centered on the axle. It's actually going to sit right there on that thrust bearing, and it's going to help keep everything centered, and then it sits perfectly flat up against 3 different points, not just 2 points, where it can cause the wheel to wobble side to side, but 3 points so it sits flat. I think this is a far superior design. I would love to see everybody swap to this design if they want to keep up, because this is perfect. This is fantastic. And like I said, once we get the screws in there, you'll see it's going to be pretty true. It's going to be pretty centered, more centered than any other diff and wheel combo. Okay, there's no other wheel and diff combo out there that's going to get you as true, round, centered, and not this wobbly, wobbly mess that you get like that. And that's just no good, right? Like, you can see our diff's centered. It's not really wobbling, but like the wheel itself is just like, okay, I'm pushing on it. So, but you get my point, right? So, yeah. Anyway, if you're using the 14s, maybe you ordered the 14s when you ordered your kit, I would highly recommend getting them if you plan on running in mod and things of that nature. You're going to want to run the short screws. You know what? I'm not sure what these 2 screws are for. Interesting. We also have our bearings for our front here, and our little wheel nut here for our front. So we need to get ourselves some front wheels. We need to get ourselves some tires. We need to get all of our electronics. If you're running the soft pack batteries, you're going to want to run this guy. Let me get this wheel mounted and we'll talk about batteries. Now, I just want to note, I would not use any Loctite here. You don't want the fumes from the Loctite getting onto the wheels and causing the wheels to weaken. Loctite will break down the Delrin, and that's not a good thing. So I wouldn't use any Loctite here. I think that you'll be able to compress these screws up against the wheel, the Delrin wheel, and they should hold nice and snug without needing to use extra fasteners, I guess, extra stuff. It does take a little bit more effort to remove your wheels for when you're changing tires and stuff, but it's 3 screws. Better than wheel nuts falling off. It's definitely more secure. And like I said, it's going to make it so it's a lot more round, like a lot more true. Again, any kind of wobble you see is from me pushing it. But yeah, man, it's like perfect, right? So good. Man, look at that. That is wild. That's freaking awesome. There's like no wobble in the wheel. Crazy. I also realized you can pop this hub off, pull the whole wheel and hub off, and pull your diff out without having to remove your wheels if for some reason you needed to. So that's kind of cool. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, we're going to do batteries next. So yeah, let's get that going on. And then I want to talk about some of the front end stuff and just the car overall. These are motor mount batteries. I realize that's what they are. There's a longer and a shorter. The longer is for going through this raised portion here. You use that longer screw there, and then the shorter screws up here. I don't know why they give us these shorter screws for the 14 millimeter screws or 14 millimeter wheels. If they didn't include the 14 millimeter wheels, I guess, so that when you order them, you don't have to get the screws. You've already got them, I guess. We'll just put them back in the bag, put them back in our box. Just to run through the rest of the manual, there's the contents for that stuff. There's the part number for the 14 millimeter rear rim. Okay. Not included though, so interesting. They should have included it. I'll be honest. They should have included the 14 millimeter because a lot of people are going to be running this guy in mod, and you're going to want to run 14s in the rear. But either way, there's some setup considerations. 2 millimeter ride height. Make sure you make the reading below the rear and front wheel axle. Please make sure you make the reading below. I guess make sure that you do it at 2 millimeters ride height. That's what they're looking for there. And that's it, guys. That's the build. There we go. There's that if you want to look at that, get all their links. Let's look at the batteries here. So we also have this other bag, which I guess comes with some extra screws. So that's nice. So they did include the couple extra screws there. I appreciate that. I didn't realize that till we got to the end of the box. We also have our battery rubber band here, which we are going to need. And like I said, we've got a couple different batteries here. There's our Gens Ace hard pack. It says 400, but it is a 300. Do we have a 400 somewhere? Let me go look. So here's a 400 versus the 300. These packs are fantastic. 300 is just a tiny bit taller, a little bit. 400 is a little wider. Should be able to fit this 400 in here, no problem. Look at that. Nice and snuggy. Beautiful. And then you can tighten this up if you need to for your battery. Pull this guy out, see what a 300 looks like, or 340 is in here. Yeah, so that's where you're going to need to slide this guy forward and kind of compress it. Or depending on how you want to set up the car, you could try to get something to space it out in here underneath towards the back. It would be cool to have some sort of a spacer. That way you could adjust the weight forward if you really wanted to. But I'm sure you could figure that out. Somebody could 3D print something. Or you could just put a little tiny piece of foam in there. And that would help keep your battery pushed forward. You can adjust that using this. So if you wanted to pull this back out, unscrew this guy a little bit, and you could like have it sit right in the middle, slide this guy forward. With only a couple millimeters toward the back, you could do that. Lots of options, so that's cool. And then all of our soft packs, those guys will also fit. And you could actually, does this fit in here? You can run this guy in here, maybe? No, not quite. Not quite. It's a little, well, maybe. It'd be snug. I wouldn't do that. You don't want to break this. But this is what's we're gonna use for our soft pack. So you can see there's a Reflex 350, GL 360, kind of snug, but they'll fit. Gens Ace 400, that guy fits in there perfect. And then like a PN 385, again, fits in there pretty well. And this will just push down in here. Actually, move this forward. This will drop down in there, and then you just gotta make it fit. Maybe a little tight, but you can just kind of snug it down in there, and it just sits. And then you can use your rubber band, and that'll hold your battery in. Bring it across here. Bring it across here. And there you go. Okay. So pretty slick setup. One thing I wanted to point out, we got to go get some front wheels. You can use any front wheels you want. We got to figure out what offset we want to run. I'm thinking 0 offset for now. But one thing that's really cool with these front end, the way the ball joint and the A-arms are, you can adjust this. Remember, this is 2 millimeter, this is 2.5. You can adjust this another millimeter out without changing your wheel offset. So it's another point of tunability. And the nice thing about that is you're not doing it with offset. because when you do it with offset on a wheel, you increase your scrub radius, your scrub steer, which is basically the pivot point to the center of your wheel. As you do your offset on your wheel and it moves to the outside, here, let's use like this as an example. If you had your wheel sitting all the way out here, you would have a ton of scrub steer. Your wheel would move like this, right? Versus having the wheel sit more with zero offset, right? More over the pivot point of your knuckle, you're going to have more of a steering like this versus a swing, right? So you'd be like this steering versus this steering. So that's what offset does. When you start to have a high offset and your wheel sits out really far, you get more scrub steer. So you can now adjust that pivot point and bring that out a millimeter or two. I'm not sure how far we could bring it out, but you could bring it out and widen up your front end while maintaining your same scrub, right? Which is super awesome. Again, I think you're going to be able to get quite a few millimeters out of there. Maybe 2, 3. I don't know. Like I said, we're already down here at 2 millimeters there and 2.5-ish almost. Hold on. There. Oh, we're stuck on the thing. 2.5 millimeters there. But you could bring it out to 3.5, no problem, and 3 up top, and really adjust your camber and your track width. So that's freaking awesome. I love that as part of this setup. Super sweet. Man, I am excited. All right, we got to get a motor in this guy, get our electronics in here, get our front wheels, get tires on here, and then a body. It doesn't come with the front bumper. Doesn't come with body posts, so you're going to need to get body posts and whatever front bumper you're going to want to run. Unfortunately, well, I got this awesome body, but unfortunately we didn't get the bumper with it. So we're going to have to run something else. Maybe I'll just run a hard body because it's a universal bumper and we've already got that. Maybe we'll try to run it in a 2500 lipo stock class. But yeah, let's get our electronics in here next. So we're going to be running some FearTech stuff here. We have the FearTech Micro Boost. Now, these are kind of set up for drift. They're more fancy, right? It's got like an LED screen on there. This one actually has a little light up motor. We're probably doing a disservice, but this is some new stuff. I want to throw it in a car. We're going to run it here. We might swap things around later depending on what we're going to run this in. I don't even know what class I'm going to run it in yet. Like I said, maybe 2500, which means this motor won't fly. We also have a FearTech Hellfire. We also have Hobby Wing stuff. We've got everything, but I kind of want to throw this in here and see how it fits as far as the ESC is concerned, because I think this ESC is just a tiny bit larger. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but we'll see how this goes. And yeah, we do seem like we have a good amount of room in here. I think we can put our receiver here and our ESC here. Should be good. Should have enough room. But let me go ahead and get this stuff in, and then we'll be back. And there we have it. Look at that. Now, again, our electronics and our wiring, not ideal. You guys can do better for sure. I'm running this stuff because I want to check it out. We'll probably end up swapping it to something else and end up putting this in our drift car, just because in a race car, you really don't want the extra battery drain and heat that comes with a screen on your ESC, as cool as that is. And then same with this little light up motor. You don't really need that extra battery drain. You want to be as efficient as possible. So we're just doing this for now, just like I said, to check this out. We'll have a full review on this stuff in this car. Probably put it up over here somewhere if you want to check that out. Anyway, all we're missing now is a pinion, which we will get before we run. But I went ahead and put a hard body mount on here for Jumerama J-body. And so that'll go good. We just have to trim out right here using our little templates. So we'll do that here in a minute. I also wanted to show the wheels and tires we're running. So we've got some Nex 0 offsets. They even make a -1. I don't know. -1 might work on here. Maybe. We got a little bit of room there. Hopefully it wouldn't rub. If you wanted to run a -1, you might be able to. But yeah, zeros on the front here. And then, the wheels it came with on the back. We are running PN KSM mediums, low profiles on the front, and then Marca V1 10 degrees on the rear. And then, of course, like I said, the Nex Racing 0 offsets with the flanged wheels. So these are awesome discs. They have different sized discs, and you have a little tool that you can pull the disc off. That way you don't have to glue the tire wall if you don't want to. And you can adjust your disc as your diameter changes. Anyway, those are worth checking out. But yeah, I think we're good to go here. One thing I wanted to point out, if you don't have the setup table, which we do not, and all the cool stuff that comes with it, like ride height gauges and camber and caster gauges and all that. Don't forget that your little tool here to do your spacing up front, this guy, your little 2 millimeters. Actually, we might have this might be the big one. It is. We got the 2 millimeter here for our upper arms and then our 2.5 for our lower. You can actually use these as makeshift ride height gauges as well. So you can see here, if you're on a flat surface, put your little 2 millimeter carbon fiber there and see if you're riding too high or too low. We are riding too high right now. So we can drop this guy back. And then we'll basically just keep dropping it until we hit our carbon fiber. Now, you want to be doing this on a totally flat surface. If your front's higher than your rear, then you're going to end up having issues. But yeah, so we can basically, now we're sitting right on top of our carbon fiber there. Okay. Now again, you're going to want to do that with your body on. You're going to want to set your ride height with everything ready to run, and on a totally flat piece of board. But like I said, if you don't have all the tools, you can at least use these to measure your 2 millimeter ride height that you should be getting. And you can measure it from the rear here. You can measure it right here up in front of the rear tire. There you go. You can see we can push right through there. We're not moving it. And then measure up here on the front as well. Don't forget your front curves a little. Okay, we're sitting way too high on the front. So we can drop that down as well. And you're going to do that with your little front shock collar adjustments. I'm curious who out there noticed. Put down in the comments below if you noticed that my shock on this side was flipped for like the whole video up until now. We were tired. Today's the next day, so not quite as tired. But yeah, make your adjustments here. And your ride height can be adjusted with your shock collars. And then you can adjust your droop screws also in the back here. So our droop screw that we're using back here, plus your 2 little 0.9 millimeter droop screws there. Once you're got your body on there and your ride height kind of set. Anyway, just thought I'd point out, you can use these if you don't have any other tools. Make sure you're using the 2 millimeter and not the 2.5. All right, we're going to go ahead and mark these and Dremel them down. See, it's going to go like this. You're basically just going to want to make a little bit of clearance in here for your side links, and you should be golden. All right. Little note, the small Dremel barrel, there's like 2 different size barrels for Dremels. The small one is basically the exact diameter that we're looking for here. It's a little bigger, just a little bit. You can kind of see just a tiny, tiny bit, but that's okay. That'll be perfect once we mark these. All right, let's see how this guy fits. Yeah, plenty of clearance in there. You can kind of see where we needed to make that clearance right there. And we are totally good now. Yeah, buddy. All right. So I think we're good. We just need to get that rear pinion, set our ride height with our body on, yeah, should be golden. And one more thing before we run it and even turn it on, really. Remember, we need to pull our servo horn off so that we can make sure everything is centered. So we've got our transmitter all centered up. Zeroed out, all that good stuff. Where are we at here? Sub trim. Everything's zeroed out like it should be. And then we can go ahead and make sure our servo is removed. One thing I wanted to point out as well is that there's this awesome dip in the bulkhead here that allows you to get your screw out. So you can get your servo horn off very easily, which I absolutely love, because a lot of times it's like hidden and tucked down in between stuff, underneath stuff. behind a bulkhead and you can't get to it. Like you have to pull the servo out to be able to get the servo horn off. So this is pretty awesome. Let's go ahead and turn this guy on. By the way, that little Furatech system, look at that. It's got a little on screen on there. How crazy is that? You can go through all the different menus. Pretty cool little setup. Anyway, so we're centered. You can see us moving in there. Let's go ahead and try to get our wheels as center as possible. And then we can put our servo horn on, and then we can fine adjust the trim. There we go. So there was no perfect center there, so we're definitely going to need to adjust our trim a little bit. But let's see, we'll try one more time, see if we can get it. I think that the next tooth is pretty far over, so yeah, pretty much equally not centered either way, so that's okay. We'll leave it there. Then we can throw our screw back in. Again, super simple with that extra space through the bulkhead. No issues. Look at that. I love that. Absolutely love that. Just make sure you're going in straight. We're at a little bit of an angle here because of our bumper mount, but if you were running like a Lexan or something like that, you wouldn't have to worry about that. Awesome. We'll get her trimmed out. And there we go. Just make sure you set your endpoints as well. And I'm sure once we're out on the track, we'll have to tune it a little bit more for endpoints and trim. So I'm just eyeballing it right now, but yeah, definitely easy to adjust your servo horn there. Absolutely love that. Love that. Gotta get our pinion, and we'll be good to go. Look at that. The ESC is so cool. Yeah, definitely think this will be awesome in a drift car, especially that light up light. Look at that. There's even like a backfire light here, which would be cool for F1 as a brake light. So I've reached out to Furatech saying, hey, add an option, because you can change the options on how this light flickers. But it's like a backfire. Pop, 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 pop. In, pop, 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 pop. In, pop, 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 pop. In, pop, 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 pop. But if that was like a brake light, it'd be awesome on F1. Put a little light on your F1 so you get a little brake light, or any car really. So hopefully they implement that on a firmware update, giving us just a light up on brake, which would be cool, just for fun. So one last thing before we go run this guy, figured I'd give you guys some weight. Now this is going to be unfair as it's got some pretty heavy electronics in there. The motor's a little heavier than normal. The ESC is definitely heavier than normal. And then we got a big 400 milliamp hour battery in there. So pretty heavy stuff. And let's go in a hard body, of course. Look at that. 182.3. Now, I've been hearing a lot of people saying that getting some good weight, especially if it's down low, is super helpful. And again, I think a lot of the weight on this guy is going to be down low, even if you go, especially if you go with super light electronics and whatnot. This does not feel like it's sitting flat. What's going on here? There we go. But if you get some real low center of gravity electronics, decased ESC, maybe a smaller battery, and obviously you go Lexan, you're going to be way lighter. But yeah, we're right at 182-ish. We have 50-50 front to rear weight bias. We're a little off on our side to side. And again, that's going to be mostly because of that big ESC. That 52% is on this side. So that big ESC is not really helping, but we'll probably swap it over at some point. Like I said, I just kind of want to use this right now. Check it out. We're going to do a review on that, like I said. So definitely a little bit of a beefy car, but I think it's going to be okay. So like I said, even though our body and car is super heavy, there have been people to get it as low as 168-ish. And, you know, our body is super heavy. So what are we at here with just the body? We don't even have a wing on it. We're at 34 grams. You can get these bodies as low as like 24 grams. Basically put a Lexan top on it, and that'll save you about 10 grams. So lighten up your wiring, all that stuff adds weight. So you can definitely get it nice and low center of gravity. You'll probably end up being around 170 all said and done. maybe 175, using your standard electronics like a Hobby Wing or a smaller FearTech or any other brand that you want to use, maybe even decasing it, like I said, maybe a 350 battery instead of a 400. And like I said, tightening up all your wires. Hell, we've even got plugs on our motor, right? So our motor's got extra wire here, plus this plug. And again, we're not trying to maximize and optimize this car yet. We will over time, but like I said, I just want to kind of build it in a quote unquote sloppy fashion with the electronics and see how it does like that, because your average person isn't going to have super tight, clean wiring, everything soldered, everything cleaned up and lowered, and really taking that to the nth degree. So we might as well just kind of put it together just like you kind of would on average, see how she does. I think she's going to do great. Again, a lot of the weight in this chassis it's going to be lower, right? It's low center of gravity, and I'm okay. And I think most people are okay having a heavier car if the center of gravity is low. I mean, if you've got a 180 gram car, but 90% of the weight is below your axle line, I think you're okay, right? Like, I think that's totally fine. 95% of your weight is below your axle. Yeah, having weight super low is a good thing. So I'm not too worried about it. Again, it's not crazy heavy. It's not like it's a 200 gram car. Even with all that stuff, we're at only 182, 183. And like I said, others have built theirs and gotten them down to as low as 168, 169-ish. And that's not with a Lexan body. With Lexan body, obviously, you're going to save even more weight. All right, let's go ahead and run this guy, I guess. We're going to go run it around our local track a little bit. Yeah, and then I'll give you some feedback on how it feels. Maybe let some other people drive it. They can tell me how they think it feels, and we'll let you know.
Yeah. Tiny wheels, big dreams, Xbility in the building. XB1, let's go. I'm on that 128 grind, small but never slow. Precision in the chassis, watch that little beast go. Xbility 1, yeah, you know the name sings. Custom and tight like championship rings. No clone, no copy, this one's got soul. Unique DNA, yeah, we built it bold. From the pits to the podium, this one is it. Catch the apex tight, man, this whip is lit. Cause XB1 got that one of a kind flow. Rolling on the track like a storm on a low. Built from the dream, designed to stun. Ain't nothing like the X, nothing like the XB1. Mini King, let it rip, no fear. Got the whole crew stepping when they see it steer. It's the next evolution, game just begun. Put respect on the name, Xbility 1. Carbon touch a servo snapping with intent. ESC tuned tight, torque heaven sent. That wheel and diff balance got me feeling zen. While they go so wide, I'm tight to the end. Clean lines, like I drew them in code. Laser cut vibes, yeah, this ain't no mold. Hard body shell, click, no shake. Dialed in so hard, it makes the ground quake. From my workbench to the track, every screw and kiss. Little giant with the heart of a myth. Crowds lean in when we plug in the power. So many winds coming, gonna make it rain. Shower! This ain't a toy, this a message in motion. A billboard of patience, vision, devotion. Every lapse a brushstroke, painting it raw. The art of control with mechanical law. Yeah. XB1 got that one of a kind flow. One of a kind, never slow. Rolling on the track like a storm on the low. Can't match that low. Built from the dream, I designed to stun. Made to win, made to run. Ain't nothing like the X, nothing like the XB1. Nah. Mini King, let it rip, no fear. Got the whole crew stepping when they see it steer. It's the next evolution, game just begun. Put respect on the name, Xbility 1. You see it move, you know it's real. It's not about the size, it's about the feel. It's not about the size, it's about the feel. XB1, crown it.
Alrighty guys, there it is. So pretty cool car. Definitely dig the build. Fun build. It was pretty easy. The instruction manual is just too good. Definitely one of the better instruction manuals out there for one of these little cars. I love all the little tips and stuff like that. Pretty awesome. Ran it around just for a couple laps, had a couple other guys drive it. Everybody pretty much says they like it, just needs some tuning, obviously. We didn't have a ton of time to tune it. We'll do that over time. We're probably, again, going to swap out this ESC and motor, although it works really well and didn't really hinder performance as much as I thought it would. Run hard body, and it's got that 5500 in it, so basically mod class, and it was still handling really well, even with the hard body, which is pretty awesome to see. I think I'll throw a Lexan on here soon, and then we'll just kind of run it for a while like that. And again, eventually this stuff will come out and go into a drift car, and then we'll get some proper race electronics in there, but stuff's still working really good. I mean, it's got the heart of the regular race ESC and motor, just a little bit of extra fancy stuff on there, which again, for racing, you don't really need, but if you like that stuff, then it's probably worth it. But the car itself, awesome. Super tunable. Again, easy build. Like, just works right out the box. Once you put it together, follow the instructions, keep it simple. Don't try to do anything crazy, and it'll just run. It runs super flat, handles, puts it, goes where you put it, which is awesome. So super, super cool. Well, we're back on the bench, and like I said, this thing is awesome. I'm loving the car. I'm loving the build. It definitely feels a little different than most of the other cars I've driven. I mean, we've driven them all, Atomics, Reflex, GLs, the next car, the Spectre, ton of different cars, and even the PN stuff, obviously the PN, old PN 2.5s and stuff like that. And this is probably one of the more different kind of feeling cars when it gets to this level of car. And so I think a lot of it just has to do with the way the rear end is set up, some of the geometries of the front end. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's different, but it's not bad at all. It feels really good. It feels really smooth. And like I said, it's pretty flat. I need to get more runtime with it. Simple as that. I had two of our better drivers run it, and both of them seem to like it for the most part. They just, one of them just kind of complained about how it needed tuning setup, which again, I'm not the best tuner. It had a little bit too much droop. A little bit too much droop going on, especially with the hard body. I think that was part of it. But yeah, anyway, so as we tune it, as we run it, I think it's just going to get better and better, which is awesome. Definitely want to get that Lexan body on here. And at some point, I'll definitely swap over to race-specific electronics. The FearTech stuff is awesome, but again, it's really meant for drift. I did also want to point out that the Xbility website has a ton of different upgrades and option parts, even right here, which I forgot to show. This little space here is for a brass insert. So if you wanted to add some weight to the rear, there's a little tiny brass insert that you can put in there. They've got adapters for the wheels for different tire truers. So if you true your rear tires, there's different adapters to put in the PN or the Nex or the Huddy or any of those different tire truers. They got all the different spring rates for the different springs, also extra shims for the body, things of that nature. Their front bumper for the Lexan body, which we don't have on us right now. It's getting painted right now. But yeah, just a ton of different options. They've even got a setup board coming, which looks very in-depth, and so that'll be cool. I think we showed an image of it earlier, but yeah, definitely some cool stuff, some cool upgrades and options coming for this guy. Again, don't forget you can change your axle height there by getting different bushings in there, which they also offer. The torque servo, just want to throw out there, awesome servo. It's been doing great. Haven't had any issues. Like I said, we run it in a ton of other stuff, not just this car, and I love the torque stuff. It's fantastic. What else? I guess shout out to Jen's Ace, because that's the battery we're running right now. We need to probably do a hard body or hard case when we swap over our electronics. We'll do some bullet plugs. Anyway, I guess that's really about it, guys. If you got any questions, definitely put them down in the comments below. This is a long video. It's over 2 hours long already. I put a lot of time and effort into the video. Hopefully it helped a lot of you guys out looking to build it, or anybody that was interested, even if you skipped the whole build section and just kind of checked out the running video, the intro, the box opening, final thoughts here. I appreciate the watching, but I know a lot of people wanted to see this car. I know a lot of people are going to be building it, so I figured let's do a full build video. I got like 12 hours of work into this video already, with all the editing that I've already done. Pretty much everything's edited with the exception of the end here. And yeah, so a lot of time into this build video, and I appreciate everybody that supports, even the guys that aren't into small scale. I know a lot of you guys still watch this stuff, or the crawler guys, you still watch this stuff. I can see it in the analytics, and I love it, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the channel supporters. These guys here get to see everything early before it goes public. They get to see it without ads. They get to see behind the scenes footage. They get a special chat in our Discord, which if you're into Mini RC, which you probably are, join our Discord down in the description below. Channel members do have a special place in there where they have full access to me and I answer any other questions. So if you're interested in helping support the channel to see more videos like this, becoming a channel member is a huge, huge benefit to the channel, and it helps me be able to bring more videos like this and spend more time and effort in creating more content, because it does take quite a bit of effort to make these longer form videos like this. Most people's review and build videos are 15 minutes long, so we definitely like to go to the next level and help you guys out, try to answer all the questions we can before you have them and give you our full experience. Anyway, channel members, awesome. Thank you guys. They also get priority comment replies. I reply to their comments because I see them first. They always show up first. And highest level channel members get stickers. These things. Yeah. So some cool slaps for the highest level. Anyway, if you can't be a channel member, I totally understand it. The next best thing is being a channel subscriber. That way you know when new videos come, and it helps support the channel, telling the algorithms and the manufacturers that we make content that people want to see. So definitely hit that subscribe button, hit that like, hit that share, hit that notification bell. All those things help support the channel, and I really appreciate it. And they're just a click for you, but it means the world to me. And then comment down below, guys. Get some comments going. I love to see the interaction in the comments. I love to be part of that. I've responded to every single comment on our YouTube channel. It's like 10,000 plus comments. It's crazy. And we've replied to all of them. So hopefully we can keep maintaining that. As we grow, it gets harder and harder, but it is what it is. I like to interact. It's all about the community. All right, guys. Again, I appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Get out there and build something awesome. Get one of these guys. If you race Mini Z, definitely worth checking out. Totally novel, cool platform for the small scale, 28 scale. Taking a lot of different parts from the bigger scale stuff and shrunk it down and made it work. So pretty awesome to see. Get out there and build something awesome, though. Build a car, build a course, build a community. Those three things are the most important part of the hobby. Obviously enjoying it, but it's best to enjoy it with a community at a place you like, driving a car you like, and then smash it, crash it, and bash it. But don't break the expensive parts. Peace.